There you go. So I want to introduce Joel Segal, a member of the tribe. He is an incredible celebrity in terms of the legislation he's helped pass. He wants to talk a bit about his homeless group. Come on up, Joel.
Good afternoon. Hello, Los Angeles. Hello. So Dolores Huerta's here, the legend. We have Dolores Huerta. A hand, round of applause. All right, good. So I was actually the author of the bill Medicare for All. You ever heard the word? You ever heard Medicare for All? But thank you. So I'm on the Congressional Health Plan, and I owe $125,000 in co-pays in 1 year. That's the gold standard congressional. Yeah, I owe $125,000 in co-pays this year, which means I only owe $250,000 in medical bills. I love corporate health care. Don't you think it's great, like insurance companies? But anyway, so what I'm doing now is I got hired by a wonderful organization called the National Coalition for the Homeless out of Washington, D.C. And I'm working with Mena Demasi and Christian Nunez, the president of NOW. There's Christian Nunez right there. And we're going to end homelessness. We're going to end homelessness because it's a sin against God and humanity. We're the wealthiest country in the world, and you shouldn't have women, families, children, seniors, veterans who are homeless, disproportionately African American. So what we're doing is we're building a movement in about 100 cities. We've already, in 3 months, we've organized 18 cities. So the plan is to draft federal legislation that will ensure that anyone who needs a home has a home. Anyone who needs childcare gets childcare. Thank you. I don't know. You talk about it. Okay. Oh, Ilhan Omar, Representative Ilhan Omar has a bill. Oh, I know what you're talking about. Housing is a human right. But the legislation we're drafting will fund transitional housing with services. Maxine Waters' bill would provide $500,000. Is that Enid Shore? Oh, Jesus. She used to work for Harry Belafonte. Anyway, and then AOC has a bill that would repeal the Faircloth Amendment, which bans all money to public housing. Did anybody know that you can't fund public housing anymore? Did anyone know that? He's from where I'm from, North Carolina. Boom. What is it? That's what we need? Ilhan Omar has a bill, $12 billion for public housing. But if you go to LA or San Francisco, they have tent cities. Did anyone ever think that we would be giving out tents to working families and children? And in Charlotte, North Carolina, where I'm from, I busted up the tent cities. I thought it was a disgrace. So I organized 2 press conferences, took over a bunch of land with all people who were in the tents, and we got people in the hotels, only because there was a rat infestation. They didn't really care about the people, but they cared about the rats, the business community. I'm drafting legislation where when you retire, you get $4,000. My mother, Rhoda Segal Kamens, one of the best persons on the planet. How can my mother live off $1,000? Does anyone can we understand why senior citizens, how they live off $1,000? My brother, who's disabled, he gets a whopping $830. Now that's insane. And basically, since I'm in Los Angeles, I can be more open than I am in Washington, D.C., but it's basically rich white guys who write these bills, but they shouldn't be writing those bills. We should be writing those bills. But if you get Social Security disability, you're going to get $4,000 as well. But we're also drafting legislation, universal childcare, universal transportation, but we think everyone should have a home as a human right. And I wrote a bill similar to Medicare for All. It's a jobs for all bill. Anyone who wants a job gets a job. But anyway, I'm here because of Harvey Wasserman. He's my brother from another mother. Grassroots election. Can you give Harvey a hand? Look at this suit and tie. Look at this suit and tie. This is from Milan, Italy.
All right, everybody.
When I asked Harvey, how should I dress? I said, should I wear a suit? He said, go ahead and wear a suit. I said, well, I don't normally wear suits. And he goes, well, I might have to wash one of my T-shirts. But I think you look great.
Thank you.
Anyway, thank you very much.
Wow, this is really fun. This is really a dream come true to have everybody like this. And then at 2:15, we're going to have a big Zoom audience. Does anyone else want to come up and make use of this open mic? You're going to regret it if you don't. Peter Mathews, come on up. Peter, come on up. So Peter Mathews here is running for Congress from Austin, Texas. No, actually, what's your district, Peter?
42nd.
42nd is where? Long Beach, South L.A. And so come on up. Peter is a brilliant, brilliant college professor. And have me down there. They wouldn't hire me. I'm too far left, but what the heck. Come on up. Okay. I want to recognize Rhonda here and your daughter. Rhonda is the printer. I have a great description for her. She was Tom Hayden's printer. Anybody who could survive being Tom Hayden's printer has got to be a great celebrity. So say hi to Rhonda. She printed my books, by the way. So thank you. Come on up, Peter. Peter Mathews, a really brilliant, and he, hopefully, God, the Congress would be such a different place if you were in the Congress. So, and you also wore a suit and tie. So mazel tov on that. Here you go.
Thank you, Brother Harvey Wasserman, an icon and legend. And thank you, Jan and Jerry, for this able to host this event today, and every single one of you. Mimi Kennedy, an old friend, and Joel Segal, an inspiration, who's working with my campaign, my advisor, my policy advisor. My name is Peter Mathews. I teach political science at Cypress College, and I do believe in what the grassroots organizing, the Mahatma Gandhi once said, when the people lead, the leaders will follow. Am I right? When the people lead, the leaders will follow. That's what you folks are doing. We, the people, are leading, and we're going to have those people following us to fight climate change, bring in single-payer health care, tuition-free college all the way to university and medical school, and all those things that have to be brought to our country. But let me just share a quick story, Harvey, about how I got started. Yeah, he wants me to sell my book, but I'm not here to sell the book. I'm here to tell you we got to save the world. We got to save our world. We got to save our environment. Climate change is terrible, but thank you, Harvey, for this. Let me just say, I was born in India. Folks, can I have your attention for 1 second, please, just for half a second? Folks, please, if you don't mind, this story is important really quickly. I'll make it short. Yes, please give me 1 second, please, folks. I will just to tell you why I'm running for Congress. Actually, I was born in India. I was 10 years old when my mother and father brought me to America. And when I was about 9 years old, I would be going home every day from school, walking home. When I got to my gate, the gate of our house in India was a very large, beautiful gate, I would see about 4 or 5 people there, 2 parents and 2 or 3 children. As I was going to the gate, I would see they were begging, hands out, begging for food. And I saw their hands and arms were like skin and bones. And I would say hello to them. I'd open the gate, go inside to my mom's kitchen, and Mom was waiting for me there, saying, "Here, son." And she had 2 hot plates of food for them and a few dollars, actually Indian rupees for them, to pay, to give them something to buy something out with. When I go back to the gate, I saw them and looked in their face, and I thought, I gave them the food, and I thought, what is it that has this gate up here, dividing me, such a well-fed, well-clothed, educated young boy, compared to these children who looked a lot like me, and their parents couldn't feed them or give them a chance in life. Yet, and it was a structure, the social structure of the country at that time, which did not allow them an opportunity. That's why I want to take the gates down in America, take the walls down in Germany, which we did. And I thank God, and that's why I'm running for Congress. Please support me, 42nd District, Long Beach, California, where there is no vision, the people perish, and we have the vision to do this. You have the vision. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. God bless you. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you. Excellent. Thank you, Peter Mathews. Come on. Lily, again, Lily Hayden. Lily, we want to thank you again for your magnificent music. And Lily is here. If you want to talk to the Jimi Hendrix of the violin, please do. Does anyone else want to speak? We actually you're going to regret it if you don't do it. We only have about 8 more minutes before we got to go live on our Zoom. Does anyone else want to grab onto this? Okay, then you know what? I'm going to talk a bit about my history book. Can somebody give me a history of the United States? Hey, people are coming in. If you could grab me a copy of my book. So listen, I'll tell you the story of my history of the United States, which I'm not going to do on Zoom. In 1970, I was a very humble graduate school dropout. Hi, Dolores. It's wonderful to see you, Dolores. We're really glad you're here. And we're going to lead with you, okay? Because I know you've got a tight schedule. So in 1970, I had dropped out of the University of Chicago, and I decided very humbly that I was going to write my own history of the United States. And I started writing between the period between 1860 and 1920. And I had the idea that history ran in cycles. I got the idea from William Appleman Williams, who was a great professor at the University of Wisconsin in Madison. And so I started writing, and I wrote between 1860 and 1920. I kind of fell into a rabbit hole. I was taking a lot of acid at the time, I have to tell you. Oh, and by the way, I'm making a public announcement. Next month, for the first time in 50 years, I'm going to take LSD again. I knew you all were dying to hear that. But I interviewed a guy. I write for a very important scientific journal called Hustler Magazine. And I interviewed, hi Danny, this is Danny Sheehan here, for those of you who haven't met him yet. I interviewed a guy named Jim Fadiman, who lives in Palo Alto. And Jim Fadiman is the godfather of microdosing. He basically invented microdosing. When I took acid back in the 60s, does anybody else remember taking acid? So you remember me taking acid. When I took my first acid trip, we went downtown in Chicago and we saw the movie Bedazzled with Raquel Welch. And for the next 50 years, I believed that Bedazzled was the greatest movie ever made. Until I saw it again, I couldn't get through it. It was really miserable. But, you know, being 21 on acid and seeing Raquel Welch, that will convince you that it was a great movie. So I interviewed Jim Fadiman a few weeks ago, and they have mastered the art of microdosing. And I have a son-in-law married to my daughter who really wants to, you know, there's a lot of 60s envy out there, and for good reason. So next month in New York, somewhere in New York, I will drop acid and I will remember this vision and all of you. And if you want to write me, I will report back on my trip if I remember anything, if I can still speak. But what they do is they do very small doses. So I was doing very big doses, and I decided to write a whole history of the United States in 1970. And I set out to do it, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't get past 1920. So I wrote a book called Harvey Wasserman's History of the United States. And I'll tell you the genesis of it real quick. There's a picture of me in the book that came out. And I wrote between 1860 and 1920. And I had this manuscript, and I was sending it to all these publishers. And I was getting back these letters, drop dead, never send us anything again. But I had interest at Harper and Row. And I sent it to Howard Zinn. Who knows who does anybody not know who Howard Zinn was? So Howard Zinn sent me, he was so kind, he sent me a one-page letter on a sheet of yellow paper, which I kept for 60 years. And I showed the letter to Harper and Row. And Harper and Row said basically, and the title of my book, by the way, was The People's History of the United States, 1860 to 1920. And Harper and Row said, you know, the editor said, we don't understand your book at all. It makes no sense. And they paid a guy at the University of Texas $100 to read it, and he said my book was total shit and don't even touch it. But the editor at Harper and Row saw the letter from Howard Zinn, and he said, if Howard Zinn will write an introduction to this book, we'll publish it. But they didn't want to call it A People's History of the United States, 1860 to 1920. The sales manager came up to me and he said, we're going to call it Harvey Wasserman's History of the United States. And I said, you can't do it. It's really embarrassing. And he looked at me and he said, Harvey Wasserman, that's the kind of name all you hippies really like. Can you believe that? Anyway, so they published it. It sold very well. And then they got to Howard Zinn, and he wrote the actual People's History of the United States, which sold 2 million copies. So in the back of this book here is a copy of the letter that I got from Howard Zinn in 1970 that got my book published. And that changed my whole life. Getting that book published, people actually hired me to teach. Can you believe that people who sent their kids to college entrusted me with their children's education? It's hard to believe. So at any rate, I spent the COVID was perfectly timed for me because I taught college for 14 years, and then I quit and I came out here. And one of the reasons I came out here was because of Jan and Jerry and all these great opportunities to be in this wonderful yard. And I met a wonderful guy, Nancy is back there, named Will Ryan, who just passed, and we really miss Will. He was just a magnificent human being. I've met so many magnificent human beings here. We had Ed Asner here. Today we have the great Mimi Kennedy here and Dolores Huerta. It's really, this place is a mecca. And so I finally finished the book after 3 years. The hardest part was writing about Clinton and Bush. And it was really fun to write until I got to Clinton and Bush and then Obama, and then this abomination whose name we shall not mention. We will refer to him as Voldemort. And I wonder if people have noticed that Vladimir Putin, Donald Trump, Steve Bannon, and Tucker Carlson are actually all the same person. Has anybody, have we ever seen them like together? You know. So we're actually getting close to the time now where it's 2:10. So we're going to go live with the Zoom in a few minutes. Does anybody want a last chance at the open mic? This is exactly what we dreamed of, by the way. This is an organizing event. Oh, and I want to really acknowledge Terry here. Terry, we couldn't have done this without Terry. It is true, absolutely. Terry Goodman has been magnificent here. And we want you to know that the dog's name is Waffles. Hey, don't leave, guys. We're just about to start the speeches. You're going to miss the whole deal, you know? This is like missing Raquel Welch in Bedazzled. Lynn Harvey, do you want to say something? Come on up, Lynn. And then we're going to segue speakers and everybody, Mimi and Dolores, if you'll get ready, we're going to speak soon. Come on up.
Okay. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes.
I am a canvasser and a phone banker for really progressive candidates. I am phone banking right now for Nina Turner. Early voting in Cleveland starts next week, April 4th. So she needs volunteers, and I'm just asking everyone here, if you have donated $5 or more to Nina Turner, now donate 5 phone calls or more for her campaign. Contact ninaturner.com and phone bank for Nina.
Wonderful. Yes, and remember that Ike also needs money. Sorry. Okay, do you want to, Terry Goodman? Terry, do you want to go grab Alan and see if, okay, and Mimi, come on up. If you will, and Dolores, if you can come sit in the sun, we're gonna get the program going as soon as the Zoom switches over, which is a couple minutes away. Anyway, I did publish this book. You're welcome to it. $20 if you got it. If you'll promise me a review, I'll give you a discount, and I will sign them for you. So please do that. And our speakers, most of you, Mena and Christian, you can stay there. Just be comfortable. We'll bring you up when it's time. And but you will be on the Zoom, and it'll go far and wide. We have Danny, Sarah Nelson. Where is Sarah? And Joel, you're over there. And Dolores, if you'll come on down, you can sit. If you don't mind sitting in the sun, you can sit here. And I just watched, because Mimi is here, I saw Midnight in Paris many, many years ago, before I knew you. And I loved the movie. And so because I knew I was going to see you again, I saw it again. And it's even better. It is a brilliant movie. And you were wonderful. You're really wonderful, absolutely. And Dolores, it's great to see you here. So I got to know when we're going to segue over from the Zoom. This is showbiz, folks. We are in Southern California. And I do need to know when Alan is going to turn us over here. and then we'll rock and roll. You want to get out of the sun? I don't blame you. And so listen, the pressure is off. We're just going to talk. Dolores, you'll talk, and Mimi will talk. And we have great speakers, Mana Demasi, Christian Nunez. Okay, 2 minutes, we're going live. Those of you who want to do your hair, we have a hair parlor over here, makeup. I know you want to be seen for, there's a couple of talent agents here from what's left of the movies, which ain't much. Oh, today's the Oscars, by the way. I wanted to give out little trophies that were called Dolores's for great activism, but I didn't get that together. Plus, I couldn't find any statues that didn't have genitals on them. So, you know, we got to be careful about that here. This is a family show, but this worked out really great. I'm really happy for this. And by the way, it's supposed to rain tonight. So we will thankfully, it's not raining today, and thankfully it will rain tonight, and we'll get some much needed moisture. Okay? I want to thank Rhonda again for printing my books under duress. Thank you so much. There is a free flyer for the book if anybody wants it. So please do grab it. Are we good here, John? But I get to introduce Mimi. Okay, so Mimi Kennedy is beyond description. She is a magnificent activist, and I refer to her as Bridget because she is Irish, as you might guess. And she has been in. I looked at your film list; it's fantastic. Yeah, you've been in a lot of great movies. So she's most recently in Mom, playing a magnificent, really. I mean, a great character that only you could do. Really, I mean, you have so much empathy and wisdom and grace and charisma. I mean, it's a magnificent. And she is in Midnight in Paris, totally out of character. The character you played in Midnight in Paris is exactly the opposite of who you are, and you pulled it off tremendously. But she is as committed and as brilliant and articulate and effective as any activist I have ever met. So Mimi Kennedy, I can't say more than that. It's wonderful, and speak your heart out.
Thank you, Harvey. Sluggo and Bridget. That's our nicknames. Wow, I have notes, you know, because it's been a pandemic, and it's been a long time since we've been together, and I've been able to address a crowd live. And I, like many, have been reflecting during the pandemic, and I wanted to get my thoughts together and be very specific about what I talked about today. And several drafts later, I don't know if I have exactly what I wanted to say, but my heart is in this, and thank you for listening. I want to welcome everybody who's going to listen online. I want to thank Jan and Jerry for hosting us again. This is really hallowed ground where many a progressive action has taken root, and here we are again, thank God. Harvey, thanks for convening us. I got a chance to read some of your book in galleys, and all I can say is it's making up for a rather dismal education in American history that I got in parochial school in the 1950s and 1960s. I didn't really know my American history. Between you and Tom Hartman, we're fixing that. I just want to say, many of you know, PDA was launched in 2004 as an anti-war organizing to bring the peace movement and justice movement inside the Democratic Party. And we did it because we knew our nominee, John Kerry, was not going to take opposition to the Iraq War into the campaign. And even the veterans wanted that war to stop. I remember the event, our first fundraiser ever in LA was me, Sally Field, Hector Elizondo, in an anti-war play by Tony Kushner that had only ever been published in The Nation. But we did it on stage, it was shattering, and Tom Hayden spoke and Tim Carpenter, our great founder, spoke. That was the launch, and Keaton Simons, who was Lila Garrett's grandson, and she joined our advisory board, he sang Masters of War, and the last line Bob Dylan wrote in that song is, "And I'll stand over your grave until I know you are dead." Well, they're not dead. People are being blown apart. Cities are being destroyed as we speak. It's happened in Yemen. It's happened in Iraq. It's happened so many places. Myanmar is so many places. And our PDA advisory board members, Medea Benjamin and Jody Evans, have been stalwart in reminding us that ideas and violence, feelings, they don't die. You can't bury them like a body. So you have to be creatively nonviolent with your life and your time and your energy to oppose those ideas every time they surface again and try to stop the expression of those ideas in violence that does murder bodies and that does create more hate. We lost the 2004 election. 1 month after that launch, we were very hopeful. And of course, we all felt to some degree, and the media was only too glad to pile on, that it was because the Democratic Party was divided, because, you know, John Kerry wasn't anti-war enough. Well, yeah, okay. You know, we were trying to work that out. But then we thought, wait a minute, we really lost because of one state, Ohio. And when some activists went to look and see whether we really did lose Ohio, guess what? Unlike Georgia and Arizona, there was not paper to look at to prove the win or the loss. No paper. There was paper in some counties. We could have looked at some of it, but by the time that case wove through the courts and a judge said, okay, you can look at the paper ballots, the counties that had the paper ballots, the few, had destroyed them with impunity. Nothing was ever happened. Nothing was ever done about it. So the worst thing to me about this Stop the Steal movement, other than they hijacked the term election integrity, so I don't feel I can use it anymore, is that where were they when you could really steal an election with impunity and there was no way to check it? It's been going on since 2002, and I never heard a peep from the Republican Party because they were really happy gaining and holding power. Now, what did the Democratic Party do? Progressives went, oh my God, we have people who support us, we're popular, but it's not showing up by fractions of percentages in state legislative races, in congressional districts, just enough to tip the balance of power. And the Democrats would tell us, now don't question our elections, it's paranoid, it's democracy, and you're going to undermine confidence. Well, we've learned since that another word for confidence, for short, is con. And if you're naive, and if you're not vigilant, and if you think that you can trust people who show you that they will win by any means necessary, means that you don't want to take, like violence and theft and deceit, you're going to lose to them. So the progressives really got on board with this. Dolores, where I see you nodding, and I want to thank you publicly for being one of the first great national activists that understood the fix that we were in, and you lent us your support back when it was convincing to Congress. Anyway, one of the silver linings, if there was any, to the past 4 years and the degradation of the presidency, of our politics, of America's moral character, though I would say some of the things we did all through the 2000s managed to do some of that too. Well, it was that in the ruthless behavior of the executive and a Supreme Court that wanted a unitary executive and a Congress that didn't want to do anything but follow the commands of this unitary executive, we saw what ruthlessness was. And I think during this pandemic, Republicans have had a chance to reflect. They even want honest elections now because they understand without them, their sins will catch up with them and they will be consigned to the dustbin of history. My father was a Republican. All right. One of the things that we see, progressives, by the way, unlike Stop the Steal, where they were nowhere to be seen. We were in the courts. We were in, as in Ohio, as in John Brakey will tell you what he did. We were in Secretaries of State's office. We had a great one here, Deborah Bowen, that restored the paper ballot early 2006 to California and started the trend nationwide and gave us wind beneath our wings. We were on Capitol Hill. We were everywhere begging people to see we need to restore paper ballots or we're going to lose the republic. They finally started to listen. Because they did think for a while, well, didn't the election of Obama prove that there's no more racism in America? That kind of naivete was what allowed the Republican Party to pack the Supreme Court with the people that gutted the Voting Rights Act. Chief Justice Roberts says there's no more racism in America. Look, we have an African-American president. That was done by these tiny incremental shifts in paperless elections, and our party, unfortunately, stood by with too much trust when that happened, and progressives were brave in being smeared and ridiculed and rejected when we tried to restore the paper ballot, but we got it back. So we have an infrastructure now that we can use to make the people's voice be heard. Now what do we see? Because the only way that you can suppress a real majority from showing up in election results is with paper ballots, making sure that paper ballots aren't cast by the majority. We have to make the majority look like the minority and the minority look like the majority. And now they have to do it old school, the old racist way. Really stop people from voting. It was easier inside the computer. It was clean. There was nothing to prove the lie. It was great, you know? And Americans would vote on these computer voting machines and they didn't even realize the danger. They were sold a bill of goods. Oh, it's so fast. We're voting on computers like I use at work and at home. Oh, my county government has become technologically savvy. This is forward progress. We had to fight all of that attitude. And while this red shift, they called it, went on, while Republicans took over state legislatures, the message to Democrats was, you're not popular, you're so fractious, you're not united, and God is not on your side. And we didn't have the money. The AM radio stations, those got bought up real quick, and Rush Limbaugh made conflict and politics a blood sport and got tons of stations, money. Fox News did the same on the people's airwaves. That should never have been sold to Rupert Murdoch. I don't really know how that happened, but that's how we got hornswoggled with everybody piled on. 24-hour news cycles that sells conflict and violence as the thing that's going to keep you watching because you're nervous and you're in conflict with yourself and we're telling you everything is bad. And at the polls, we couldn't get the majority to show up because in incremental little jurisdictions, you could steal without paper as much as you wanted. That's what we're correcting now. I want to talk about the degradation of the candidates who rose to power and are holding power under these deceitful circumstances where they were convinced they're popular, the other side is not popular, they're godless Democrats. We saw it in the hearings of the most brilliant Supreme Court nominee I can remember, Ketanji Brown Jackson. And those three Republican senators, Cruz, Hawley, and Graham, tried to smear her with repetitive wallowing in child pornography. And this was not a surprise to me because when you followed the Ahmaud Arbery trial and at the last final arguments, the defense lawyer for the three murderers said, four murderers, well, the long dirty toenails of Ahmaud Arbery. And I remember commentators going, what's that have to do with anything? How strange. Lawyers knew it wasn't strange. There's a legal strategy. They teach it. Try to attach something disgusting to your opponent. It's a subconscious feeling, emotion. It's one of the deep fundamental human emotions, and it will attach to your opponent, devalue your opponent's humanity, and your listeners, the people who are doing that devaluation of your opponent, don't even know it's happening. Just get inside something disgusting. That's what those men tried to do to this brilliant judge, and they succeeded only in attaching the disgusting trigger to themselves. I will never think about them again without thinking about how much they enjoyed bringing up child pornography, ever. And Judge Brown Jackson emerged unscathed. Yeah. So if the Republicans gave a damn about children, they'd have passed the Build Back Better Act. Yeah, they were so worried about the cost, but they're not worried about the cost during the tax cuts or during a war or during gun violence, discussions of how much that's costing us. They're just worried when it comes to helping families and children. So I want to blanket the media this year with the message that it's Democrats who protect children because we've wanted all along to protect the planet. You know, I weep when I see tornadoes taking out whole communities in the heartland, or when I see floods making river areas and coastal areas uninhabitable, and now the parched farms because it's too hot and the water has gone to fracking. There were people who were trying to spare us this. They were trying to prevent it. They saw it coming, they believed the science, and they brought it into their campaigns, and they got defeated by this message that we're godless and we want to destroy the purity of the nation and its children. Wrong. We want planetary survival, and we want the human experience to thrive, experiment to thrive, and democracy and nonviolence is the only way forward, and elections are the nonviolent moment of golden opportunity. It was also Democrats mostly who warned that the continual buildup of a nuclear arsenal was not gonna keep us safe. And what do we see now? War in Europe, brutal aggression, and what ties our hands? The nuclear arsenal. So it was never something to make us safe. We now know it's just an arsenal of suicide. We tried to warn, we've wasted a lot of money, and diplomacy is the only way forward. I know that diplomatic solutions don't please everybody, but it gives us time to raise children and to educate ourselves and to reflect the way the pandemic gave us time to reflect if we were lucky enough to survive it, on what it means to see human development, to see our loved ones thrive, or struggle even, but in our own homes where we love them and we learn from them as to how to live without violence. So that's my last thing. I want to say that take this reflection from the pandemic, take heart in the fact that progressives have won the infrastructure back. It's not perfect. John Brakey will talk to you about how he is still going to preserve it more accurately, but we have come far. And we are popular because democracy is worth saving, Earth is worth saving, life is beautiful. Those of us who get to know it that way, while other people are being blown apart and we see it, that is a painful mystery, but I believe it is that pain that fuels our activism. Because what we know to be beautiful, we want to share. As I said, elections are the nonviolent golden opportunity. We've restored the infrastructure, use it or lose it. Alan tells me we're going to revive the voters' calendar for 2020 that was so popular and effective. It's a big research job, 6,000 counties and states, all their details and deadlines, websites where you can check up to the last minute that you're not going to fall into a trap that they've just set for you. Elections are not just election day, election season. And you have to make a plan. The media picked it up, the DNC picked it up from us, the progressives. Steve Rosenfeld, shout out to that journalist. He helped us so much. And make a plan to vote. That began here pretty much. So our vision is to let the people's voice be true. Let the right divide us this time. I believe many of us have been lucky to see children come into our lives, especially during the pandemic. And I believe that babies come into the world thinking they've won the lottery, regardless of their circumstances. This is it. a human life, a chance at self-actualization, self-experience, knowledge, further knowledge, maybe even a chance to make amends, maybe a chance to do some kind of nonviolent, even joyful justice in the spiritual and the physical universe. Democrats are trying to save the planet so that can keep happening. So thank you for having that vision with me, holding it, and let us kick ass this year.